And we're live. Blender Today Live is here for another week. Blender 2.8 alpha has been out for already a week. So we in the last episode, like a story, yeah, like a show. In the last episode, we went through what is 2.8 alpha, like what could you expect from 2.8 alpha. So now after a whole week of fixes and upgrades and tweaks here and there, we are actually getting closer to like, I don't know, I was using it today and it feels really like it's being polished all over the place. So we still have 5 more weeks until the beta comes out, like, or maybe or before maybe there is another alpha release, maybe when it's a bit more complete. Who knows, right? Like that's the schedule is like, yes, should be an alpha beta in August, but maybe there could be another alpha release, who knows. The idea is to get as much testing as possible. So the people at the Blender Animation Studio are working on Spring, the Spring Open Movie project. I'm using it personally to do all kinds of things. I've been working especially on the theme, on the default theme, and testing a few things, doing a bit of everything. So let's get through it. So let's go. So before continuing, please give it a thumbs up to, like, on the comments. I'm reading the comments here. I will show you what I'm looking. So here, this is Blender Today, and if everything is okay, so especially the audio is fine. It's not like it was clipping last time, so I just want to make sure that it's okay. Anyway, maybe I should have because last week I had the voice a bit weird, and yes, I got a haircut because it's summer, even though today the temperature dropped, but it was way too long for that. Thank you for the thumbs up. If you want to give it a thumbs up to the video, that's also nice. So I'm going to start with the news of today. So first of all, wait, cheers. And let's go through the news because it's Monday, and every Monday there is the Blender developers meeting. So the meeting was very short, actually. Thanks for thumbs up, people. And so yeah, the bug tracker is still open for crash reports, so you can go and report anything that makes Blender close or crash. And there were a few things that would make, like yesterday, Sunday and Saturday, there was a bug that adding materials was crashing, but now not anymore. So so feel free to add materials again. It was something with the material, with the preview panel. And then that was fixed. Then the beta milestone is still the same. That's all the topics that are hopefully going to be addressed. Some of them, if you have, like one of the questions people always ask is like, why in edit mode the modifiers are not visible? So if I have a subsurf ball in edit mode, I don't see it. Well, that's because the cage, the cage feature from 2.7 is still not implemented, but of course it's going to come. I say of course, but maybe it's not very clear, but yes, the modifiers will work in edit mode. Don't worry. don't go crazy. They're going to work. And you can read about all these changes in the meeting notes from today. So it's the last week of Campbell Barton, developer on like pretty much every area of Blender, is going to leave us already next week. So this is last week, and the idea is that he spends as much time as possible getting feedback from the people here, from the artists at the Blender studio, and myself. I want to sit down with him and then go through workflow and things that could be that are better when you are together, right? Because then he goes back to Australia, where he keeps working. He's a full-time employee of Blender, so it's not gonna stop, and that continues. But you know, having people around you, it's much better. So okay, before I continue, yes, if you have questions, please add Blender Today so I can see them in orange, and then I'm going to scroll all the way up as much as possible, because sometimes YouTube is a bit silly and doesn't let you scroll all the way up. So sorry about that, I have no control on it, and I will try to answer all the questions that I can. After going through the new stuff. So what else is new? Well, Sergey is working on Open Subdiv. So You know OpenSubdiv, that amazing OpenSubdiv that has been implemented. It was being implemented on Blender since forever ago. This video is from 2014, 4 years ago. We have a young Sergey going through explaining what is OpenSubdiv. It's basically like a very nice soft surf, very fast one. So this is how soft surf looks. This is a demo from 4 years ago. Now there is a newer version on OpenSubdiv that is also more compatible with the new Blender 2.8. So that will make things a bit easier. So yeah, basically this is how an animation will look with soft surf. And then just jumping to the cool stuff, this is, once you set it up, this is how it will look with OpenSubdiv. So basically you get super fast soft surf, and also you have support for creases. You know, in the creases in Blender, maybe I can show it. So if, for example, I have a cube with soft surf, you can set some edges to be creases. So you can make it, you know, like some edges to be more pointy. Well, OpenSubdiv has a very nice support for this, much more advanced than the Blender one. So that would be a huge improvement. And OpenSubdiv has it, so we are going to have it. That is amazing, because it means that you can actually animate your characters being on with the soft surf on. So it will be so nice. What else? Multi-object editing, all of those things are going to be worked on better when Campbell is at home. Many of those things have to be implemented. The dynamic override is also being worked on, and the static override is also being used at the Blender Studio. So that will get improved. Then light caches are also coming. Workspaces. I'm going to work, by the way. Okay, yeah, Pablo works on the default theme. I worked on the default theme all last week, and even today and last week I've been working on it. So this is basically the default theme. Oh yeah, let's do the test. So I'm here on the Blender source, and I'm gonna do git pull, and hopefully okay, now it's a change in the branch. Actually, it's already up to date. So the summit of code hair shader has some improvements. Yeah, actually, after the beta, when the Summer of Code projects are a bit more advanced, I'm gonna go compile them, and we're gonna see the changes together here in Blender today. So if you wanna see that, subscribe. But yeah, Blender is up to date, so I just need to launch it, and this is how Blender is today, as of now. So load factory settings, this is how it looks, and I want to show a few of the things that changed in the interface. And later, actually, I have a new section for you. It's I don't know, I was just thinking this morning on the shower. I have a new section for this, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, no spoilers. But first, let's see what the changes are. So I'm gonna make the UI a bit bigger now, just so we can see it better. But something that changed today, since as of this morning, is the some updates in the, okay, maybe not so big, that happened in the status bar. So the status bar, remember, it's this at the bottom that you can also collapse, and you can yeah, there will be an operator for it that will make things a bit easier, but you can collapse it. And not only shows now what you can do with your mouse, but also shows what you can do when you're using model operators. So for example, if you're translating, if you press G to move, now you'll see what you can do with any of the keys. So you can press, for example, a lot of people didn't know, of course, if you're an advanced user, you know, but if you're just like open Blender for the first time, and you probably don't know that you can do press G, and if you want to move it in the X axis, you should press X, and then you move it. So having the help from the toolbar, from the status bar there, it's just amazing. And also these the constraints that you apply when you constrain to an axis also will update information down there. So this is pretty nice, because then you can learn as you're using it. And of course, if you don't like it, you can collapse it. But I myself, I've been using Blender for like 16 years now, and I found like you find new things like shortcuts that were added and you never found out about them. So like invert snapping, yeah, or like, well, clear constraints. So for example, if you're constraining to an axis or two axes, you can press C to cancel the constraint and continue moving. That's amazing. Well, how would you ever find out if they were not there? They were there, but they were not easy to read. So big props for that. Another new feature that appeared recently, that I made a video showing something completely different on Friday for the Blender developers channel. And there was an eye here, like an eye icon here in the header. And it was just, yeah, it was just a bit too much in your face. Some people were asking, what is it? I didn't explain it because I knew it was gonna move around, but it was there when I made the video. So what is it? It's basically this, view object type. So it's we're gonna keep working on it today. This morning we had a meeting about how to improve it, but basically it means that you can hide and set the visibility and the selectability by object type. So if I want to hide all the cameras, I just hide the cameras, or hide the empties or armatures, and basically any type, which is awesome because maybe you don't really care about the light props, speakers, or you only want to see the lighting. So maybe you can just like turn off everything and then just lamps. That would be, maybe we can do it like control click or something to show only the lamps. And it's I think it's pretty nice. And if I'm not wrong, this is also per viewport. So you can make things appear or disappear, like one viewport with a specific object type and then with another object type. So that's pretty nice. And the same for the selectability. So if you disable that, you can basically make objects that you can't select them. So yeah, you can select them in one viewport, but not in another one, which is, I think it's pretty useful, because then you know you can have a window that it has maybe a floating viewport with this setting, so you can't click on them by mistake, which is nice. Speaking of Windows, not Microsoft Windows, but Blender Windows. Blender Windows just got a very nice upgrade that is the difference between a main window and a child window. So what is a child window? Is basically a window that doesn't have global components like the top bar or the status bar. So for example, when you go to user preferences, this is a child window. So it's child of the main one that I had here. But if I want to make a whole new window, I can just make just have it, and then it will have all the components. It will basically copy everything. Your main window, there you go, and it has the status bar and everything. And if I change the workspace here, you see, I can have my workspace in this main window, and then I can have another here I'm looking for a crash, by the way, and renaming workspaces and stuff. Another workspace. There you go. So here I can have my workspace, and here another workspace, and here I can have the console, and here I have my viewport. So these are main windows. But a child window is when you make basically a new window, you change it to for example, this will be the Shift F6, so my graph editor. So it will be my child window. Then I go to another workspace, and the child window changes. So that way you can have this, for example, in another monitor with the maybe only one viewport, or maybe two, or just the animation curves. And here in this window, you can just change your workspace and it will change it with it. It remembers. So they are linked basically. It's pretty nice for multi-monitor setups. What else? I have here my little notes. Speaking of workspaces, I'm gonna make a little pause here. So okay, let's go full screen. Let's get serious, man. Here, and women, let's get serious. So legend says that in Blender 2.7 and before, let's load factory settings. All right. That in Blender 2.7 and before, there was something called screens. What is a screen? It's basically a layout of your editors. So by default, it was just default. Then you have animation, compositing, motion tracking, for example. And that's it. Basically, it was a way to arrange your editors, and that's it. There was nothing else. There was nothing added to it. So in Blender 2.8, these screens are basically called layouts, and they're not exposed to the user anymore. They're just internally. But there is workspaces. So a workspace, as I mentioned, is like screens, but a bit more powerful because they can have their own add-ons. They can whitelist add-ons, and they can have key maps and a bunch of other things. It's a bit more powerful. So in 2.7, these settings, they were not really used that much, but I think one of them, maybe like the video editing was used, but instead of having the curves here, usually you will have like the file browser, and everybody had their own. But I think some of them, like this one, the animation, I've seen animators mainly using the action editors, like horizontal, like when you're editing software. So I've seen animators using more like this layout, something like that. Like this is a viewport, this is a viewport, one of them is the camera, and working like this. I've seen mainly, and this is Shift F12 there. So something like this, and I think it's a bit better. So like this, there's so many examples, and for 2.8, it would be awesome if we could have better default workspaces. So soon, this is a teaser actually, there will be a call in the Blender developers dev talk forum where we're going to ask for your feedback. So you can provide your perfect layouts for the for Blender, so the ones that you're going to use when you open Blender. So the idea is that right now there is only one, there is general. That's why people, some people say like, hey, you have all this empty space here. Well, this will be filled with tabs, with new workspaces. So a few would be selected to be on by default, and then some more specifics. For example, if you do 3D printing all the time, you maybe want to have a layout that has the 3D printing add-on on, and that's something that Workspaces can do. So, but you don't want to have 3D printing here all the time because maybe you don't do it. Maybe you do animation, motion graphics, whatever. But maybe it's good to have the option. So Blender 2.8 will ship with a few workspaces here that you can, of course, make your own. And in here, when you click on the plus button, it will show the built-in presets, like preset workspaces that maybe are more specific. So for, I don't know, architecture, 3D printing, or yeah, all kinds of very more specific workflows. So that is one thing that will happen soon. We're gonna make a call for content. So stay tuned. Stay tuned here and stay tuned in the Blender Developers YouTube channel, youtube.com/Blender Developers. That's it for what I wanted to, what I wanted to show. What else do I want to show? The new, yeah, the new, I can do it right now actually. Yes, so there has been a few updates on the theme, but I'm not gonna go through them all of them. But I wanted to do a quick shout out to the people helping there. So in the Dev Talk Blender forum, there is a user feedback code quest thread where you can see people suggesting things for Blender 2.8 based on the work done on the code quest. And here there is the untinted interface default theme with the users providing feedback with things that, for example, were broken. Like there were some things that were, some of them are just Blender features that needed to be fixed, but some of them were just like broken. Like we found out, thanks to Simon Story Schulke, that Blender was using for some listing of IDs was using the theme from a box. Like instead of using the menu back, which because it's a menu, it was using the theme from a box, for example. So we found out thanks to this user and thanks to the theme that changed now, because I made a change in the theme where the boxes have the same color as panels and they are slightly transparent. So it means that when you, for example, have a subpanel, the subpanel is slightly darker, but when you have a box, also the box will be slightly darker because it means that there's like we go deeper. So yes, that is one of the changes that happened. So nice. Oh, I haven't used the workbench in the live streams in a while. So good. Anyway, close this, and I will go into this new section. I will call it a section or something, and then I will start answering the questions. So if you want to see more about Blender 2.8 Alpha, I talked about the key map as well in the video in youtube.com/Blender developers. There you are going to find all the videos that I keep making. Yes, I keep making. And here, for example, the status of the Blender 2.8 Alpha is a rather long 15-minute video where I go through most of the changes. Some people say that I was sad. Yes, I was sad, but it was also the long hair. Maybe it was a mixed feelings, you know. But basically, I talk about how 2.8 Alpha is with the add-ons, with the minimal key map, and so on and so forth. But all right, before jumping into the questions, I wanted to have a new section that maybe I think I'm gonna make individual videos of it, because it's nice for the future, instead of showing it in a 1-hour live stream. Is that I received a comment. There was a comment here in my latest video, my latest live stream, this one, where I talk about Blender 2.8 Alpha basically 1 week ago. And one of the comments was very nice, from Robert Andres. Is with version 2.8, Blender has lost the ability to produce render layers with a single click for compositing. Redo this in 2.8 if you can. See the link. So that is a very nice comment, because it's a concern. It's a real concern, completely polite, being like, hey, this is my workflow in 2.7. How can I do it in 2.8? So this, so what the feature that he's mentioning is that in Blender 2. This is Blender 2.7. So it's basically moving the objects into 3 layers, into the first 3 layers. So it selects 1, moves to the 2, and then the 3, and then it makes a render layer for each one of them, and then it assigns the layers here from the layer buttons. Then he renders, and then he renders one render layer, and then he mixes them up on the compositor. So it's very simple. And his concern was that this Blender 2.8 has the ability to do this for compositing. So this new space show, I call it Hold My Beer. So it means like, hey, Blender 2.8 can't do this thing that Blender 2.7 can. And I am gonna come over here and say, okay, hold my beer here. Let's do it together. So I have a cube, yes. I have a, so before moving on, the render layers that he mentions now in Blender 2.8 are called view layers. But there is something that might be leading to confusion. So, okay, how do we do the thing that he did on 2.7 in 2.8? Fast, because he has to be as fast at least as 2.7. So let's do it. I have a cube. Let's add a little monkey and let's add a icosphere. So we have all these nice 3 objects. Now he had this, then he moved them to layers. So we're gonna move them to collections, which is the equivalent of layers in 2.8. So select the monkey, move to a new collection, and then select the sphere, move to a new collection, and then and then the cube was already in the collection 1, but if you need to move it, M, and you move it to the collection number 1. So now I have these 3 objects in 3 different collections. Now I need to assign them to their own view layer, or speaking in 2.7 terms, render layer. So since the start of the blend file that runs Blender when you started for the first time is still based in 2.7, the default view layer is, for the time being, called render layer, but we're gonna change it. It's gonna be called view layer. So that's also confusing, but let's use the RL render layer, or like old stuff 1. So that is the render layer. So all stuff 1 is my default view layer. I'm gonna make a new view layer / render layer like it used to be. And you know, by default now it's called correctly. So let's call it all stuff 2. And let's make a new one that is all stuff 3. So now I have 3 view layers. The difference is that now all 3 view layers are showing all the collections. The outliner by default is showing the content of the active view layer. So what he did afterwards here, after the setting up, was this step. This step of basically selecting which view layer belongs to which. You can do it in 2.8 by, for example, I am in the view layer 1, and I only want the collection number 1. So I select the collections that I don't want, right click, view layer, exclude. So it means that now this view layer only has collection number 1. Then I go to collection, to my view layer 2, and I only want the collection number 2. So I select number 3, shift select number 1, right click, view layer, exclude. This is a bit hidden at the moment, so we're going to expose it a bit better. Maybe we need to find out where in the UI, because it's very important. So since I'm going to use it often, I will just add it to my quick menu. Right click, add to favorites menu. So now when I press Q, the option is there and I can exclude them. All right, I'm done with the all stuff 2. Let's go to all stuff 3. And here I want only the collection number 3. So I select the other 2. And I can press Q, exclude. So now I have all 3. And that's pretty much it. We can now render. So let's select cycles, because Eevee was crashing yesterday. One sample and a bit smaller so it doesn't break. Bam! This is my render, beautiful render with all the 3 render layers. So maybe if I make the film transparent, then we can actually mix them up. So I render again, all 3 render layers. Let's go to the compositor, shift F3, and let's compositing. And now I can just mix like I used to do in the all time. So all step 2 and then all step 3. Done. Now I just need to use an alpha over to mix them up. So if I use, if you have the awesome node wrangler, you can do just Ctrl-0 and it will make an alpha over. And then you select the nodes that you want and you do Ctrl-Alt-0 and it will make it. And if we use the backdrop, there we have all the 3 objects. So you can add, for example, a color correction somewhere here, and change, no, the other one, the other color balance, and change the settings per object. So that is the Hold My Beer episode number 1, which is basically just taking something that a process that someone did in Blender 2.7 and doing it in 2.8. So that said, I think it was less than 10 minutes. Yes, cool. And I'm gonna continue with Blender today. I'm gonna answer some of the questions. All right, here you see where my mouse is. I will scroll the way up. 926 was the last comment. Oh, actually I can go into here's where we started. Bam. So first question, the Growl asks, how will we export things to game engines in future since Blender game engine is gone? You can't export with Cycles node. So what will replace it? Yes, you can. You will export materials. So the materials will be from anything, from Cycles, from the same way it was before from Blender internal, I guess. How will export things to game engines? The same way it was before. Could you even export from their game engine to other game engines? I don't think so. The new interactive mode, the real-time mode in Blender 2.8 is going to make things a lot easier because it's going to be node-based. It's going to be much more modern. It's going to work a lot better. So yes, answer is yes. What's your plan for Blender 3.0 AI? Maybe that would be fantastic. Do you know what's causing the issue that where all I can see in 2.8 is an outline? Try updating your drivers or just make sure that your OpenGL is at least 3.3. This is the minimum OpenGL that Blender 2.8 needs. And it's from 2010. So if you have, it's 8 years old. So your graphics card, if it's from the last 8 years, 6 years, it should be possible to run it. Question about 279. Wow, there is a cool feature, CPU plus GPU rendering nightly builds, but they're unstable and crashes a lot. When this feature will be introduced to 279 stable? Unfortunately, never, because Blender 279 it's done basically. The last version of Blender 279 is 279B, and it's the end of it's over basically. When if in case there is like a very critical bug, like a security issue or something, that then maybe there will be a chance for a 279C, which will include this one error maybe. But 279 is not getting any new features, only fixes, and if only. But we are so close to 2.8 that I don't see that happening anytime soon, unless there is like I said, like very serious security issue, just to keep the 279 as clear as possible. So yeah, why there are no new things implemented in 279? Well, because like you said, it's unstable and crashes a lot, because what you're using is not 279, it's master. So Blender has two branches. When you download Blender, you can download the official, which is called master, and Blender 2.8. So basically the master branch is the current, like at some point Blender 279 was the master branch, but then the release happened, and the development continues, of course, to add new features and make it better, but the version needs to stay where it is, because otherwise it's hard to keep track. And the development, then master became 2.8, and all the changes happen in 2.8, but also there are a few changes that also happen in master, sorry. The reason why development sometimes happens both in master and in 2.8 is that when they merge together, when they're combined, there's less work for the developers to go through all the changes, basically. I like the subtle pause where we can't see you dead, but can hear you breathing. Yes, because I start streaming before and then I continue. And then that's my heavy breathing, because, you know, it gets... it's a lot of people watching this thing at live. It's humbling. So I need to, you know, get pumped to do it. Can we now hide back faces edges when retopo in X-ray mode? Well, what do you mean? The hidden wire or not? Like in edit mode. Hidden wire? This is what you mean? Nice haircut, thank you. After release beta version of 2.8, are you going to work on new features or just working on bugs? It's mainly going to be fixing bugs, like all the imagine when the beta is out, the bug tracker will be open for everyone. And 2.8 is grabbing so much attention that a lot of people will be using it. Like a lot of people are using it right now, but they can just report bugs at the moment because it's overwhelming for the developers. So yeah, that is a reason why not at the time, for the time being. But it will be mainly working on fixing bugs, but I bet there will be features because, you know, developers can't stop themselves on their free time and do stuff. I do it myself. Sometimes I'm working on things for work, like for Blender, which is work, but it's also life. So yeah, there is a weird overlap there between life and work, and you end up working on features when you had to work on other stuff. Any updates on Shadow Catcher for Eevee? Not that I know. What about the weight painting feature where the brush can be oriented parallel to the surface when it's painting on? Yes, that's something that wants to be implemented. I heard developers wanting to do it, but there just hasn't been no time for the time being. When are UDIMs being added? As soon as possible. Should ask Lucas, but I haven't seen anything recently. Will Blender 2.8 have parallax mapping at some point? Yes, I bet, because 2.8, you know, is a whole series, 281, 82, 83, 84, I bet. But I haven't seen any development happening for the time being. When I say that I haven't seen any development, that's what I mean, that I haven't seen. I read every commit log, most of the commit logs that happen. I stay up to date as much as possible, but sometimes things happen in forums that I don't follow. Like I try to keep up with the forums, with the official forums, like Blender development dev talk forum. I stay up to date with this. I also go to right click select this community. I spend time here, but that's as much as sometimes things happen outside in other forums that I don't follow. When you do the call for content for the assets manager, you will have a lot of proposals. You will have a shortlist then. Could you make all the non-selected ones available on internet? Yes and no. Like if we make it not select, maybe we can just find a way for people to contribute, to put them somewhere publicly, and then we all, everybody can use them basically. So when you make them public domain, and we just pick the best ones for Blender built in, but everybody else could use it. Yeah, that would be a nice way. But which service provides that thing to just throw things in one place? An FTP maybe? Is there any plans to implement a smart ray topology like you can see in instant meshes or see? I don't know ZBrush, but smart ray topology sounds I don't know. Sorry, I don't know the feature. Can we do edge slide rotation in Blender? Yes, right? Edge slide there is, and you can rotate. Like, what do you mean? Like slide, and then you can see at the bottom all the things that you can do. So you can rotate, scale, grab, of course, but those are part of the regular ones. But you can alt, yeah, interesting. Anyway, thank you for clarifying about the modifiers. Yes. Please add an option to hide the object origin. Is it distracting when I'm modeling? Just move it somewhere else. It's important to see the object origin, but yeah, maybe there could be an option to hide it, or to Maybe here, because here you can enable all object origins. Maybe instead of being a toggle, maybe it can be a drop down where you could choose which object origins you want to see, the known or the active or selected, and all the objects. So maybe that way will make everyone happy. Any idea when work on T2424 developer D2424? Oops, that page doesn't sorry. Developer. Add font selection to, oh, I wish. Look at all these hearts, so much love. When is this from? 2016, the last. 17, June 2018. Oh, there has been changes. Awesome. Thank you, Richard, for keeping it up to date. I so want this feature, but yeah, developers are so busy, but keep pushing it. We can keep updating and keep nudging, like, hey, like poking people every now and then. That's how things get done, especially now it's a busy moment for all developers. Please do a demo on how the collections work. Hey, show this one. How can I make mask layers like in 2.79? Good question. With cycles, but I don't know if with Eevee, but with cycles it should be possible to set the flag as mask. Could there be a create new image button in the bake panel? Yeah, maybe. Today I was playing with a few changes in the UI. So we have here if we are on cycles, we have the bake. So here you would like to have create a new image. Yeah, that would actually make sense to have it there, because now, for example, in the nodes, when you add an image node, like image, now you can create an image from here, which wasn't possible before. So it's pretty nice. And today I was testing maybe how would it be to have all the default settings here on the top, because it doesn't really make sense now that you make an image texture and first you have the preview, which is not really the most useful things usually, then you have colors, and then you have the type. So maybe I think this could be on top without the header always there, and it would make things a bit more tidy, because you create the image and you immediately have the thing to change it. And I was planning on testing it. I actually tested it, but I didn't commit any change. And I think it's better because everything is tied together. You select the type of texture, bam, you create it immediately instead of having to dig through the panels. What else? How will work Blender for Archviz? Will there a theme or any feature to help people to use Blender for this kind of work? A theme like a Blender theme? I'm not sure. But a feature to help people to use Blender for this kind, like Archipack, maybe. The add-on. But having a specific workspace for our Archviz, it would be something very nice. So when we make the call for content, make sure that if you're a Archviz pro, stay tuned and help. Exceptional work. Thank you, Bruno. Congrats to the team. Why is not all in the collection selected if I click on the collection title? Because you're selecting the collection, not the objects within, like here. I don't know if some people keep saying this feature, but I'm not sure that I would like, because you click on it and then you lose your selection. Maybe because sometimes you just want to select the collection, like to do things like all this stuff. Like I'm not sure if I want to change the selection though. You can, if you want, you can just select grouped, which is G, and you can select all the objects in the same collection, and that way it's the same basically. So if you have these three objects in a new collection, then you can, for example, select this collection and it only selects this, and then the other object collection and it will select the other ones. The edit mode is totally unusable with the less recent and AMD HD video cards with the legacy drivers. Well, make sure that you have OpenGL 3.3 at least, and the latest drivers. Depending on your platform, that's the problem. But yeah, there will be, in the beta, I think is where more emphasis on the making it work with different hardware will be. Is there any simpler way to use smooth flat shading in 2.8 than just searching by name? Well, it's in the object, smooth shading and flat shading. Or just use the new right-click, add to favorites menu. So then you have it always there, always on, always at hand. Could you tell us the story behind the name Eevee, please? I believe you just not take it from Pokemon, did you? My lawyer doesn't let me answer that. But we already talked about it once in the interview with Tom. Just check it on the Blender Developers channel. Will Blender 2.8 be faster than 279? It's already faster. If your graphics card, it's good enough. It doesn't have to be like the best and greatest, of course. The idea is Blender supports hardware at perfect, at least 5 years old, and then 8 or more, like 7-6 years at least. But yes, for example, if you have a very, very nice graphics card, in 2.79, Blender wouldn't take advantage of it. So it would be rather slow, or it would be like a certain speed. If you open that same file in 2.8, it will be much faster because the graphics card now is actually using its power, right? So it's faster. In this case, it's faster 2.8. But if you have a really, really old graphics card, it's probably faster in 279 and it's slower in 2.8. You know the difference? Really old graphics card is faster in 279, slower in 2.8. But if you have a faster graphics card, is slow in 279 and fast in 2.8 because it's making use of all this new technology. So yeah, that's a way of looking forward. And we already made a video on the Blender Developers channel that shows how Blender 2.8 is actually faster than 279 because of the new Dependency Graph. So the Dependency Graph is the heart of Blender. It contains all the connections, the relations between the objects, and this is having huge improvement over 279. Think of Blender 279 trying to solve animation in it's one big noodle soup. And yeah, of course it gets stuck because it's just too much to handle for big scenes. But in 2.8, that big noodle soup is actually many little noodles, and they are updated only when it's needed, and they're super nice and multi-threaded, so the faster computer is better. And yeah, basically that is one way of putting it. All right, Dean, is the new navigation cube in its final form? No, it's not. It's not in its final form. There is already in the developer channel, there is, I already showed it a few times. There is work being done. And actually there was a navigation here, proposal for the gizmo. Was a proposal with very nice maybe if I show it. Here, in right-click select, there's this very nice proposal. For some reason, these pictures are not loading, but the other ones are. And there is a few proposal, which is very nice. It's a very nicely done proposal. Any words about the asset management and what to expect as features there? No, there is no news. Basically, that will be worked on, but there's nothing new besides what we all know, and you can find it in the code blog. What about the dependency graph feature? Window playing and a window stop. Yes, local time. That is a feature that's called local time, and it's coming. So basically, each window can have its own time. Just wondering if the Blender sequencer will get some love later on. I really hope so, and I think it will. It's just that there's so many things going on right now that you can only give so much love, right? It's like if you have 10 dogs, there will be at least one that will get less love than the rest, right? So Blender has how much? 16 editors? 15? I don't know. Then there is a few that get less love. Somebody was also saying like, hey, the Blender motion, the motion tracker is not getting love. But yeah, okay, you can't do everything, right? Like motion tracker is already really, really good. And the sequencer is good, but it could be better, especially like multi-threaded. But yeah, there are things that, the other things that are being worked on at the moment. But you can check the add-on for the Power Sequencer add-on for Blender by the awesome GD Quest, and you will get, he even is making videos on his YouTube channel about how to use it. So that way you can improve the Blender sequencer already with an existing and free and open source add-on. Just big props, GD Quest. Let's see what else. Can you have different solutions for different cameras in Blender 2.8? Resolutions for different cameras? No, the resolution is attached to the render. It's a scene setting, so you need a new scene. Where can see the mockups of icons, interface, and other stuff? In Blender Developer. So here in Blender Developers 2.8, and then in 2.8 there should be like a UI workflow here, task, not task, list of tasks, where you can see some of the UI discussions. Some of them are implemented, not all of them. Any news about bevel improvements? Not that I know. Will Crease Edge work in edit mode? Yes, everything will work in edit mode. It's just a matter of time. Will the workbench option in render setting allow to render what the workbench engine is showing? Yes, just like an OpenGL render in 2.7. Then you will, like a Playblast. Yes, you will be able to render it, and ideally it will be renamed to something more obvious, like preview or something, and then you will be able to change the settings, because right now, for example, you can choose the workbench engine, but the workbench is a bit confusing for some people. So if it was just called like preview or viewport or something, it will be much simpler and easier to understand. And right now it's not showing basically anything, but the render settings will appear here, the same or similar settings that you can change from here. So that way you can render the workbench engine. I've seen some people being confused by why it's such a big deal to get all the developers working under one roof. I feel unqualified to explain. Really? Does something like that require explanation? I will just leave a nice background here. Blender Today. Visit Blender Today. Why is it such a big deal to get all the developers working under one room? Well, let's get serious now. No, I mean, it's Blender is made by the community, right? It's made by everyone, by you at home, by me, by everybody that is watching this. Everyone is making Blender. It's organized at blender.org, but the developers are even the ones that are working full-time, paid day by day by Blender and by the Blender community and by the Blender Development Fund or the Blender Cloud that also pays developers. They are not always in the same place, right? There are developers in Australia, in the States, in France, in Belgium, in Russia, in everywhere. So having a meeting, or in New Zealand, for example, where it's already tomorrow, like New Zealand time. What time is it? It's like 8 AM and here is 10. And I'm in Central Europe, I'm in Amsterdam. And to talk to developers that are in New Zealand, there is like a whole half a day difference. So imagine how hard it is to get into a meeting. So not only like to discuss things. So you know how it's much better to just call someone and talk instead of type for 5 hours? Well, it's even better when instead of just being on Skype at different time zones, you just sit down and discuss the changes. So yes. That's the answer. Why is it better? Because the developers can be here at the Blender studio, where there's people using Blender 24/7, and there's people that has been using Blender for decades. So it's really good input for the developers. Instead of just looking in forums at home, they can actually sit down here, like next to the artist, and say, okay, show me how do you model and how we can improve that, or show me the crash, Blender crash, show me what their steps are. So being here in the same place under the same roof it doesn't have any value. It's like, no, invaluable. It has a lot of value, that's the word. It doesn't have a price, exactly. It doesn't have a price, it's just amazing. So that's why we need to make another code quest 2019. Give me ideas for the topic. We went to the moon already. We could go to Mars, or maybe 2.8 could be Mars. I don't know. Anyway, I'm almost reaching the time, but I think I have time for a few more questions. Tyrone says, will the rotation, which is showing how much a fraction have rotated? Yeah, that's the design, that's the idea. And something that we discussed today with the developers is that something I don't like is that when you rotate something, the whole header disappears and the value is aligned to the left, which is completely out of place because you're working in the center of your viewport. So I propose that we can just keep the header as it is always, so we don't have, when you do these kind of things, it doesn't blink. And also to center it, having it in the center. That could be one workaround, because ideally it would be nice if it was close to where you are rotating, right? Or like follow the mouse, or like something a bit more visual. But for the time being, without having to do a lot of work, maybe having it somewhere in the center would be better. Or maybe having it here at the bottom, maybe together with the stats. We're also discussing maybe we could move some of the statistics from here to the viewport and make them a bit better, because Blender right now shows statistics all the time. But what if you are like video editing, right? And you don't care about how many faces there are if you're video editing. So that would be, if you put it in the viewport, that will make a lot more sense. If you've seen the 3D Gizmo idea on right-click select, yes. And what is Grease Pencil getting released? It's getting released as in when with 2.8. When it's getting merged, then that is as soon as possible. But just look, like you would, like when Grease Pencil appears, you will hear the world rumble. You will hear people screaming on the streets. You will know about it. If you're on Twitter, on Facebook, on any social media, you will find out. If you follow the Blender Developers channel, I'm gonna make a very happy video about it, showing it. And that week on Blender Today, I'm gonna be making it in Spanish, in English, I could learn Italiano, but for that video, I don't know. It's just gonna be a huge moment, so it will happen. But there you can read the commit logs. Actually, you can see that all the changes in Blender in the BF Blender CVS, and you can see the Grease Pencil object. Let's see for the subject, sort by subject, and you have Grease Pencil all the time. Like these are all the changes since this month in July. It's only been nine days of July, and it's already all these changes, and many of these changes are Grease Pencil VFX, Grease Pencil annotations, because there is a new annotation system. Like it's being worked day and night, literally, because there is being worked by Antonio Vasquez, which is in Europe, and Joshua Allegorith, which is in New Zealand. So it is literally being worked day and night. So it will come, and you will find out about it. I love the status bar key prompts, but I see some people saying it can get annoying. I'll suggest allowing us to turn these prompts on and off. Yeah, well, you can turn off the whole thing down, the whole status bar down, or you can also just maybe calm down the colors, like tweak the colors so they don't affect them so much. Paul Griffin says, in Eevee, can it be possible to disable certain intensive nodes such as bevel in the viewport to speed up the real time? That would be actually a good idea, like a simplify. Yeah, so Clement, if you're watching this, maybe we need a simplify for Eevee. Thank you, Polly, for the suggestion. Next, Nati Diaz. The difference between performance of Blender and a Mac is much better than on Windows. I'm not sure. It probably is. I think Windows is the slowest of all, then Mac, and then the fastest is on Linux. And I'm not saying that because I use Linux, but it's proven to be fast. Ascent engine I already mentioned. Will it be possible in the future to apply modifiers on groups? No, never even thought about it. But yeah, could be an operator like an add-on. There are problems with the glass shader. It's not working in Eevee for some reason. Any ideas? Should I just wait for the next update? Yes, you should just wait. But I can pass the question to the developers, to Clement. Or if you're watching this, Clement. Hi, bonsoir. No, bonsoir. That's all my French. And I think I'm passing the overtime. So I think I'm gonna start calling it a day. I will answer, okay, 5 more questions. Sean Malcolm, could Blender sticking to the units fully? By that I mean, when I use metric, I only want to see everything in millimeters. Yes, that was actually proposed. And that's something that, yes, I've seen the discussions going on and developers agree that that would be great. So keep bringing this topic back, make a proposal maybe on right click select how it should look. But yes, basically having a display, like Blender use units, but besides that have another display unit, which is which one? Centimeters, millimeters. But Blender internally to use the metric system, but on top of that having another just for display, forcing all the displays. Maybe it's not even that hard now that you think. Maybe it's not that hard. So if you're a developer, you should. Isn't it interesting? Like if I was a developer, I would be like all over the place. Like, oh, this is a feature, and then learn and do it, and then put up a patch. I don't know. Blender is such a fun project to contribute to. Sean Becker says, is there still big blend file changes stopping you from saving opening between updates? Yeah, well, if you're going to work only with Blender 2.8, then I will say it's okay for now. It's safe-ish to start opening your, like saving your files with Blender 2.8. But do not go back to 2.7. Don't save files with 2.8 and then 2.7 and then 2.8 and back and forth. Don't do it because you're going to lose data. Just stick with one version. If you're 2.7 and then move to 2.8, save it and continue. Don't go back because that's when things get messy. Sheeter Teen. Hey Pablo, is there any progress to show in the new hair guides grooming branch by Lucas Tone? I hope so. Lucas actually was on the Blender Institute recently, so I hope. What else? The auto merge vertices option is missing from the 3D view snap settings. No, it's not. Daniel Poole. I actually checked. I saw that discussion somewhere, I think in the Dev Talk forum, and it's not actually because it was never in the snap settings. It was in the viewport. This one, the auto merge. It's not really part of snapping. It's just because it doesn't have to do anything with snapping. It's just that when there are vertices on top of each other, then that will make them auto merge. But doesn't really mean that you're snapping always. Maybe you can just duplicate and click again and it will duplicate on top of it. But with that said, this is in the mesh options panel, which is, you can find it here in the mesh properties, here auto merge editing. So yes, you enable it and then you can have it then on. This panel, remember, is a duplicate of what appears here in the viewport. So if you're in full screen, you can still change it from here. So that's another way of doing it. I still don't get used to shift space for playback. I have to get used to that one. Anyway, Another change that was added recently is Alt A and Alt A for deselect. Let me know what you think about it. At first I didn't like it. I thought it was like a waste of a key, but over time I'm getting more used to it, especially because we already have like H for hiding, Alt H for unhiding, G for moving, Alt G for clearing location. So selecting for A and Alt A for deselecting, it makes sense in that it's a bit more predictable. But yeah, it's another key. But yeah, another key that was added today is Shift tilde for fly mode. So it's really handy. It was added today. So Shift tilde and you enter fly mode. Okay, 2 more questions. The random colors in the viewport is cool, but it would be really cool if another option somehow assigns color per object based on the primary color of the material. Well, we already have primary colors and material colors. Yes, or you also have material colors for the viewport display that you can change. Yeah, the object ones was removed basically, but that is a task for an add-on for sure. Okay, one last question from Noel Belich. The filter for object types had way more sense in the eye next to the overlays rather than the properties shelf. No, it didn't have a lot of sense. Well, no, it didn't, because it's a different thing. It's not an overlay. It's a property of the, like, this is viewport. This doesn't affect my data here, right? It doesn't. Like, it doesn't change any property from here. This is a display, so having selectability that affects your objects, right? The object types, the way you interact with them. So maybe yes, maybe no, but having a panel dedicated to that here, I don't think you're not changing this all the time. Come on, you're not. Yeah, it's not that often that you need it. And space here is pressures. We should keep it for things that are really something that you change all the time. So yes, there will be more changes coming up there. And that's it. I will call it a day because it's already 10:10 and I will start another live stream. If you speak Spanish, I'm gonna do this exact same thing at another channel. It's a new channel called youtube.com/blenderhoy. Hoy, like today in Spanish. Very original. Anyway, I will, I need to start closing this. I need to start getting ready for the next exhausting task of sharing Blender, but it's so much fun to share Blender news. So, did you learn anything new today? Did you like the hold my beer concept? That is, say, hey, in 2.7 you could do this, that kind of things. And that would be fun to keep doing it. I will see you again at the same time, same channel, next week, 1 week from now. So yes, let me know what you wanna see next week. I know Grease Pencil, we all want to see Grease Pencil. I tried to compile Grease Pencil, but I couldn't compile, it was crashing. I wanted, like, as a surprise, I wanted to do it here just to show you guys, but it was crashing. So I guess it's because the developers are using Windows and I'm using Linux, so when building, maybe there's a few things that to make it cross-platform, they have to be boring stuff, nerd stuff. Anyway, I will see you again next week, same time, same channel, same everything. Ciao. And the music, yes, don't go away. Here I am. Okay, I'm just having too much fun. Ciao.